Okay, boys and girls, so you should be at your seats sitting at a level 0 with your folders up. And you should have your papers by now. If not, have the teacher pass them out. And what I want you to do is we are going to, well, first of all, make sure your name's on it. And we are going to read this one paragraph at a time, reading with our pencil and taking notes. Okay? As we are going through this, if you happen to get done before others, go back and reread that paragraph, okay? I don't want anyone to be sitting there and talking. Okay, so let's get started. With your pencils ready. It was late at night, but Kevin lay awake in bed. He could not sleep because he was very scared. His bed was inside a giant camping tent, and just outside the tent were the fields of Africa, filled with wild animals. Kevin looked at his parents, who slept soundly in another bed across from him. He wondered how they could be so calm. What if a lion came into their tent to attack them? It took a long time before Kevin finally fell asleep. So what I want you to do is the teacher's going to pause the video, and I want you, if you need to reread it, go ahead and then take some notes about what you read about in that paragraph. Remember, if you get done before the teacher plays the video, reread it. And as the teacher, if you could just give the students about a minute, that would be great. Okay, so you should have had about a minute to write. If not, go ahead and do that now, but let's continue. Make sure our pencils are ready. When the sun came up, he felt his mother's hand on his head. "Good morning, Kevin," she said. She looked happy and excited. "Time to wake up and go on the safari." Okay, we are going to stop and check for understanding. I want you to write what happened in that short paragraph. And the teacher, if you could pause the video and give them about 30 seconds for this one. Okay, let's continue. Make sure your pencils are ready. Level 0 voices. "I'm scared," said Kevin. Before they left America on the airplane, his parents had explained to him that a safari was a long drive through nature. During a safari, you can see lions and zebras living free instead of cooped up in a zoo. "What if we get close to a lion?" he asked. So go ahead and have the teacher pause the video and give them about a minute this time. Boys and girls, you're writing and you're checking for understanding. Go ahead. Okay, let's go on to the next one. "Oh, darling," she said, "like I told you, nothing will happen to us if we listen to what our guide says. We're not going to write anything for that, but we just know we need to listen to what the guide says." Let's continue. Kevin rubbed his eyes and slowly put on his clothes. He listened to the birds singing outside and began to feel less afraid. He walked out of the tent into bright sunlight and ate his eggs quickly at the table outside. Then he got into a big green Jeep with his mother and father. The driver was a kind-looking man with a bushy gray beard. His name was Jim, and he was their guide. So, the teacher is going to pause the video and give you about a minute to write some notes in the margins. You're checking for understanding. Go ahead. Okay, let's move on to the next paragraph. This one's a little longer, so make sure we're ready. The Jeep took off along a dirt road. After a little while, Kevin saw something move out of the corner of his eye. "Wait," he said. "I see something." Jim stopped the car and told them all to get out. Kevin and his parents waited in the tall grass, while Jim walked ahead of them and looked around. After a minute, Jim raised his hands in the air. "Shh," he whispered. "It's nothing dangerous. If we speak loudly, we'll scare 'em away." They walked up to where Jim stood, and soon Kevin saw an animal come very close to them. It was a beautiful golden creature with dark brown spots and a very, very long neck. It had come to eat the leaves of a tall tree. The giraffe is the only animal around here tall enough to reach those leaves, whispered Jim. That's why it always has food to eat. So boys and girls, that was a long one. I'm going to give you about a minute and a half to take some notes on this paragraph. Remember, if you need to reread it, go ahead, but the teacher's going to pause the video. Make sure you're working hard. Okay, let's look at this last paragraph. Wow, whispered Kevin. He could not believe how close he was to the giraffe. All his fears vanished, and he began to get excited about the day to come. Okay, so boys and girls, we're going to go over some questions, okay? And I'm going to read them one at a time. Now, if for some reason, there will be some questions where I'm going to pause, and I'm actually going to have you go back and look in the passage, okay? But if for some reason you need more time, don't worry, don't rush. You can always do it while people go to their centers times, okay? So let's look at the first one. Where are Kevin and his parents? Now, do not circle anything yet. A, in Australia, B, in Africa, or C, in America. Before you circle anything, I want you to go back and find in the text and put a star by it. Go back and find it in the text, even if you know it in your head. I don't care if you know it in your head. I want you to find it in the text and put a star by it. So you're going back in the text, looking for the answer. You're not sharing it out loud. You're putting a star by it. After you have put a star by it, then go ahead and circle your answer. Remember, if you get done before other people around you, just wait patiently or go back and reread. But remember, we are not trying to see who can get done first. I'm interested in who is taking their time, who is looking for the answer, who's reading with their pencils and going back and rereading. Okay, so let's go on to number 2. What event made Kevin less afraid of being close to wild animals? Let's read that again. What event made Kevin less afraid of being close to wild animals? Notice the word less afraid. What event made Kevin less afraid of being close to wild animals? A, Kevin's mom told him that nothing would happen to them if they listened to their guide, so Kevin was not afraid. B, Jim, the guide, came to pick up Kevin and his parents to take them on the safari. Or C, a giraffe came very close to Kevin while he was on the safari, and Kevin was not afraid. Now do not circle anything yet. Let's read it again. What event made Kevin less afraid of being close to wild animals? Remember, we're trying to find the best choice. Which one of these would have made him less afraid? Okay? Let's look at the choices again. Kevin's mom told him that nothing would happen to them if they listened to their guide, so Kevin was not afraid. Let me go back in the text where it talked about that. Let's see. Okay, on the first page it says, Kevin says, I'm scared. Before they left America on the airplane, his parents had explained to him that a safari was a long drive through nature. During a safari, you can see lions and zebras living free, instead of cooped up in a zoo. What if we get close to a lion? He asked. Oh, darling, she said, like I told you, Nothing will happen to us if we listen to what our guide says. And then it says that Kevin rubbed his eyes and slowly put on his clothes. Okay, so that talks about what Kevin's mom said, and if I were you, I would be thinking, did that make him less afraid? Let's look at the second one. Jim, the guide, came to pick up Kevin and his parents to take them on the safari. Let's go back in the text. Notice I'm going back in the text for every choice. So the driver was a kind-looking man with a bushy gray beard. His name was Jim, and he was their guide. Okay. Jim the guide came to pick up Kevin and his parents to take them on the safari. Okay, let me look at the last one. A giraffe came very close to Kevin while he was on the safari, and Kevin was not afraid. Let me go back to that. Okay. It says that Kevin saw an animal come very close to them. It was a beautiful golden creature with dark brown spots and a very, very long neck. It had come to eat the leaves of a tall tree. The giraffe is the only animal around here tall enough to reach those leaves, whispered Jim. That's why it always has food to eat. Wow, whispered Kevin. He could not believe how close he was to the giraffe. All of his fears vanished and he began to get excited about the day to come. So I want you to think which one of these three events shows that Kevin is less afraid. Go ahead and circle your choice. Now I want you to notice, boys and girls, I went back and looked in the text for every single choice. We never want to just circle what we automatically think is right. We want to go back and actually look for it because the answers are in the text. Let's look at number 3. Kevin was scared when he was in the giant camping tent late at night in Africa. Which evidence from the story does not support this statement? Let me read that again. Kevin was scared when he was in the giant camping tent late at night in Africa. Which evidence from the story does not support this statement? So it's saying which one of these sentences doesn't go along with why he was scared, okay? It took a long time before Kevin could fall asleep. Kevin's parents slept soundly in another bed across from Kevin. Or Kevin thought about a lion coming into their tent to attack them. Let me read this again. Kevin was scared when he was in the giant camping tent late at night in Africa. Which evidence from the story does not support this statement? So which one does not support how he was scared whenever he was camping in the tent late at night? The teacher's going to pause the video and you are going to go back and find the answers. I want you to go back and find the answer. The teacher's going to give you a couple minutes for that. Okay, now I'm going to read the next one. And again, if you aren't done, that's okay. You can always finish it before you go to your center. How did Kevin's parents most likely feel during the trip to Africa? A. Kevin's parents were bored during the trip to Africa. B. Kevin's parents were afraid during the trip to Africa. Or C. Kevin's parents were not afraid during the trip to Africa. I do not want you to circle anything yet. I want you to go back and find evidence in that text and then circle it. Find it first and then circle it. The teacher's going to give you a minute to do this. And let's look at the last one. What is the story mostly about? A. A boy named Kevin who goes on a safari in Africa with his parents. B. A boy named Kevin who was excited to see many wild animals close up. Or C, a family that went to Africa to see giraffes. Remember, you're thinking, what is the whole thing about? Do not circle anything yet. Go back and find evidence in the story. What is the whole entire story about? What can you find that supports the whole story? After you're done, the teacher will quietly collect these and you may quietly go to